Grove City Council, this work session on this January the 18th, 2022. And welcome everyone here. We have all the council members present and a lot of our directors and some of our staff here with us this evening, this afternoon. We would like to start out with our first discussion, item number A, having a discussion regarding our downtown. Turn time to our city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. I noticed you guys have switched up a little bit, so get used to your new seats. This was a request from Councilmember Williams a little bit ago to put this on a work session where we were going to discuss downtown and talk a little bit about the future and the vision of what the city council wants that to look like. So right now, it's zoned as such that it's zoned for commercial, so meaning it could be retail or it could be an office use in the downtown. And I'm talking on Main Street in particular. We do have a rule that if you are going to put housing on downtown on Main Street, that you have to have first floor retail, and then you can put housing on top of that. So if you look at Drew Armstrong's project that he did,
That's a current rule?
that's current rule, but it's only housing. So if you're going to build an office building on Main Street, you do not have to have a retail component with it. So so if somebody wanted to do just office, then they can come in and do office. But if they're going to do housing, then the bottom floor has to be retail. So that is what the current rule states. So what I would suggest is I'd love to have some input from the city council on some things that are on your mind in regards to downtown. And then we can talk about moving forward on whether we might want to create a committee or something to have a focused approach on downtown and have that group come back and bring back recommendations to the Planning Commission and to the City Council. So particularly if we're going to talk about amending the code, then obviously the Planning Commission will need to be involved in that. But we could have a couple council members, we could have a couple planning commissioners, some business owners on Main Street, and sit down and if part of that is we need a greater visioning session with what the city council would like. I mean, this is something we could put on our agenda here when we have our annual meeting. If the council wants to have some general direction that they want to have downtown look like. But if we can do that kind of parallel with having a little bit of a smaller group really start diving into some of the things that we might want to do there. So with that, if you guys want to give me some feedback on kind of what you're thinking and we can tackle it a different way. If we don't need a committee and you want to do it another way, we can do that. So I don't know, Todd, or?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does this coincide at all with the general plan redo?
So it could, because the general plan, part of it will be having that discussion with on the downtown. So that the general plan will have stages of public input. So once there is something that we can give the public to react to, then we'll invite them in and have them come in and provide comment. So in my mind, we can either step back and say, let's just make this part of the general plan and just have everything run through general plan, or if we want a little bit of a different approach, we can kind of do our thing kind of on the side, which I think we could mend right into the general plan if there's some things that we want to maybe get done sooner rather than later. If we go through the general plan, it will be a few months before we get to a point of actually adopting the plan and then making decisions based on the plan. That will be quite a few months before we get there. So
I'd like to move forward with, I mean, obviously it's not tonight, it's just a discussion, but making it a permanent change that it's commercial and retail only. When we made that change to the Grove, I don't know what, 6 or 7 years ago? I mean, it was a long time ago. And we made it 50-50. I think that saved us a lot of heartache with not having that all office. Otherwise, I can tell you that would be all office in the Grove.
It would be a lot office, I think you're right.
And I think we made a really smart decision in doing that. Main Street needs to be commercial and retail, where people walk down there, they shop both sides of the street. It's a place where it's a destination point for these small retail businesses that want to have a place and make it. So I'm completely in favor of making it all commercial and retail. There's other places in the city for office buildings, but for me, that's Main Street is.
So let me.
Yeah,
just-
let's be clear on
I
commercial
just
and
want to,
retail.
because when we say commercial, I think sometimes we think that's retail.
Right.
Commercial does include office. So
Yeah, and
if we're
I-
going to differentiate, I prefer we say office and retail. So if we
Can
don't
we
want.
make it just retail?
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. If we want it retail only
Okay.
on Main Street, then let's clarify retail only and not office.
Okay,
Instead of using the term commercial.
okay.
Daniel has raised his hand back there.
Sales tax generators.
Correct.
Yeah,
It's fine. Restaurants? Yeah.
yes, yes.
Why not?
Wait, hold on.
But that's still sales tax.
That's still sales tax
generating.
rev,
It's not? Those are not?
What are we talking about? What use?
Haircuts.
No, haircuts are not sales tax.
I guess we'd
You're
have
not
to go
charged sales
through-
tax on a haircut.
I guess we'd have to go through specifically, because I wasn't aware of that there were specific retail businesses where someone could walk in and purchase a service or a product, and that would not be considered retail. So I probably need to see the exact list that you're referring to, Daniel, so that is good clarification. I would just like to move in that direction. I'm fine with those services, that people can walk in and still purchase
Yeah, so,
services and/or goods.
services and/or goods.
because I think the way we define that, if it's not a majority of their business, then we don't consider it a sales tax generator. Hair salon's a great example, because you can buy product there, but that's not the majority of their business. So that's just definition. If we need to tweak definition, there's a fairly easy way to do that, I think.
Okay.
My feeling is I would really like to preserve Main Street and Center Street, quite frankly, as much as we are able, for goods and/or services on the main floor. I don't want commercial office buildings on the main floor of Main Street and Center Street. And in
Okay,
doing so
on the bottom floor. So
Bottom
you're
floor.
okay if office is a level 2,
offices
3,
and/or residential.
Yeah.
Sure.
as long as bottom floor is retail.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I think the problem is that we have some small shops on the east side who really struggle because lack of traffic,
Yeah,
foot traffic. And no matter what we do until that changes, we're really stuck with this problem on Main Street. Because you take a look at, we just went up to give Susie what,
yeah.
and
Ginger Ellis.
and
Yeah.
she said, you know, that she never had such a good business except during Strawberry Days, where
Yeah.
you've got traffic,
Yeah,
and that's the problem, and these people are struggling down there on getting people to come to that place. I mean, that's why, you know, when Walmart shows up, everybody else surrounds that place
Yeah.
because it's to generate traffic.
Yeah.
So that's going to be an issue no matter what we do.
I think that's part of the thoughtful approach, because if it's retail on the bottom floor and we still have office on second and third floor, or residential, I think that's part of our traffic.
Yeah.
I think that's people that are already downtown.
Yep.
So I think, to me, it's just being thoughtful on how we're gonna craft this. I think it's establishing our vision, which I think we're getting close to establishing the vision, and then having the code reflect how we're gonna get to what that vision is.
Yeah, I don't think, I'm not a huge favor of dragging this out through
Yeah.
a committee and
Yeah.
bureaucracy of all sorts.
Yeah.
Let's get something done.
So do you want us to come back with some proposals for the city council? With the understanding, whatever we do, generally speaking.
I think, I'm gonna speak for me,
Yeah.
right? This, you know where my head's at.
Yeah.
I think Sid's similar. I think think Brent's similar. I think we want to try to preserve our downtown Main Street for service and goods.
For
Oriented
mainly
businesses.
retail stuff.
Yes.
But, and it might need to start with the list, because again, I wasn't aware that that's not considered commercial or retail. You
And
know,
there's
those-
only a few of those, but there are.
Well, we
there
have a
are some.
haircut, well,
We-
we
we
did,
did,
we
and
did
we
have a
have a
haircut.
pet
We do have a
store, too.
pet.
And
pet
so I want to
grooming.
make sure that if we
Those are
do
fine.
this, yeah, where we're all on the same page with what we consider that to be. So maybe that's a place to start, and then we can have the discussion, you know, after, but that's the direction I would like to move, that if it's only retail, it's only retail. I think that's completely appropriate for Main Street, especially the size of our Main Street.
Okay,
On the other side here, what's the,
And I would love to consider going across state and continuing that same vision on Geneva,
okay.
all the way down.
So from center, so, and I think somebody mentioned center as well. I mean,
Yep.
So
So like where
cen-
where Cravings is,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I mean, all the way down
So
to.
center and then take it all the way to the border?
Yeah,
Okay, so from Center Street down to the border on Main Street
yes,
and then Center Street.
Yes.
That's going to be our focus area?
Kind of the border on each.
Yeah.
Okay.
and actually, I would like to go all the way down State Street into that whole manufacturer area. So,
Oh,
That's a type of RDA type.
Well, Fugels is in Linden, so,
hey, it's not
no,
us.
I'm not saying
She's on
that.
State Street.
I'm on
Oh,
State
State
Street
Street.
going
between,
down.
between center,
no, I'm
between
with you.
center and
Yeah.
Cubbies, right? That area.
yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
I'm saying across the street from the
State
rodeo
Street back up to
grounds.
Center, going around on,
the
or sorry,
gas
Main
station.
Street to Center on State Street, going
So
over
you also have Second South. So I think the thing that we need to talk about is actually where is it that we're talking?
the, yeah.
I think we're all in agreement of the what. I think it's the where.
Okay,
I'm great, Diana, with going across Main Street, down State Street, down to the border.
Center and then down Main Street to the border of Linden, and then the border.
Yes, but we also have State Street.
I'm not as concerned about that, just because it is more manufacturing, and they're not just, you're not gonna get that walking traffic down there.
But
But I don't want commercial.
my opinion, that's our number one focus for redevelopment.
yes,
Agreed.
And either we can get started on that now, or, generally speaking, our focus
gonna
has
be
been
the
on the
general plan.
Grove.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, our focus on the Grove and getting that developed. And in my mind, once that was all done, then we would focus on the redevelopment, we'd come back and tackle that. But if we
Yes.
want to speed that up, we can do that. Because there are mechanisms, creating RDA, trying to
Yes.
create incentives for a developer to come in and kind of repurpose that on State Street.
Yes.
There's tools that we can do that. But if we want to make that part of the larger discussion, when we're talking about all this, it's probably a good idea,
Yes.
because all these pieces are eventually going to have to interlock. And instead of kind of focusing here, and then we're, looking a block away thinking, gosh, we need to get that figured out as well.
But boy, let's don't drag this out.
Yeah.
Let's put something on the plan. and
Okay,
get
so let's
this-
talk the process specifically, what you want.
I
the-
would love it if we could do something fairly quickly on Center Street and Main Street down to the border.
On each.
And so the discussion will just be with the city council?
Yeah.
Okay. Is everybody all right with that? So no business owners, no planning commission, just,
Well, I think we come up with something, we can always talk to them about what we've come up with.
it will eventually circle
Yeah.
back, because if
Yeah.
we're gonna make changes, they're gonna have to approve
Sure.
it. I'm just saying,
But,
in the planning
right, yeah.
process, did we want to expand that, or, because Todd's right, if we expand that, that does tend to add time. So for the committee to get together and do their thing and then report back to you, that
Yeah, I think
that
we
does
just bring
take
it
time.
back to council, and like I said, Daniel provides the list of
So-
retail-only businesses, or what, and then if we need to
Yeah.
tweak that, that might take some time, and have that discussion.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing, and I want to clarify so that we can proceed, is that everybody is in favor with kind of bottom level being retail, making that a requirement. Okay,
Yes.
are we there?
Yes.
Okay.
correct.
Because that will probably be driving kind of where we're headed. And again, we can talk about the uses, we can talk about what's going to happen on top of that, but we can start putting some things together for you to react to, so that you can say, like it, don't like it. and then continue to have that discussion. And then we'll move forward in haste so that it will just be us. So hopefully
Okay.
next work session in 2 weeks, we'll have some things in front of you. And if we don't have it quite ready, then for sure when we do our annual meeting, we can jump into that one as well.
Okay, sounds
Okay,
good.
any more thoughts on things that, in regards to downtown?
Okay, thank
Okay.
you, Scott. Let's go to 10, and let's go to item number B, on the drain basin on 600 North.
Okay, so we have a detention basin on 600 North, which is not landscaped. It's really a weed patch. It is fairly decent in size. Marty, do you know how big that is?
6 north and 810 west.
Sorry, 6 North and,
It's
Eight-
west of the-
810 west?
way west of the pipe plant. Is that what we're talking?
yeah, could you bring it up? So right now, this thing has a fence around it, chain link fence, not a good look, not landscaped. The basin itself needs some work to actually be better at handling storm drainage, and then we have the aesthetics of it. So we've talked to a couple of you that you have expressed that concern, and we've been starting to put some things together as staff. But we thought, well, let's get this in front of everybody so that we're kind of moving in the direction that everybody's comfortable with, so.
Don't you wish sometimes there would be that Dolby sound thing, like?
It's about 4/10 of an acre.
Yeah, it's actually 2 lots that were dedicated to the city, so there's 2 separate parcels there, but about 0.4 total. Just to pull over.
There.
Just teasing.
That doesn't want to pull over.
I can share my laptop.
You have it pulled up on the county parcel or on Google Earth?
Just maps, yeah, just Google Maps. It's just west of the pipe plant.
How many of you are exactly familiar with what we're talking about? So Eric and, okay, so Diana, you probably,
I'm having a hard time
Okay.
picturing.
let's pull
That's
this
okay,
up then
though.
so you can.
Pass that down to, no, I don't want to touch my laptop.
Oh.
So here's the property that we're talking about. So 600 north, 810 west.
Okay.
That's been there for a long time.
It's been fenced in a long time.
Probably 25 years. I don't know the exact timing. It's probably been that long.
Does it fill with water?
Should it? Yes. Does it? Probably not, because it's not functioning properly right now. That's what we found as we investigated a little bit, that the orifice plate, there's some repair that needs to be done to that, so it actually backs water into the property. But it will as soon as that's put in there, but right now it probably just flows through the property versus operating properly and functioning properly.
Okay, so so it's not functioning properly.
Currently, no.
Is there any plans to fix that?
Yeah, now that we know about it.
Okay. When did we learn about it? Just from,
When you guys brought
Just
that
from-
up
okay.
a few months ago.
okay.
So council, should we take the fence down, make that all grass in there?
We'd put in an irrigation system. We would put in landscaping. We'd make sure it's functional as grass.
So it's just weeds right now. We've never landscaped.
It'd make a great pocket park,
I mean,
right?
we
Just
cut down
grass.
the weeds, and that's essentially what we've
So
done
remove
for
the
last-
fence, cut down the weeds.
I'm glad that kids
Grass
ride
it.
his bike by, 'cause
I mean, that's a
they
nice
could
piece
get
of
in
property for the neighborhood to enjoy.
I haven't talked to neighbors. What are neighbors saying?
They would like to use it. and have green space in their neighborhood.
We acquired it in 98, 97. So it's 25 years that it's been, probably in the last 20-plus years like that with weeds, and we just tried to keep it mowed down probably.
So what would the timeline be on, could this be done by spring, so it could be,
No.
the fence could be done by this
No,
summer?
Sid.
No?
Be quick.
Well, I think we're gonna put a price together for you so that you.
It's a budget
can
item,
approve the
so
funds
really.
for it. Because we have the storm drain fix, and then we have the landscaping, so we'll have a cost, and we'll have that for our annual meeting for you to review, and if you give us the thumbs up, then we'll proceed on it, but I'm assuming we'll need to bid it out, right?
Yeah.
Is it currently being mowed, maintained? I don't know, whatever, I mean, Dion, do we have guys that are, or has this literally been forgotten for 20 years?
No, we take a building over in there about 3 times a year, cut it down. The neighbors would love to have this grass.
So it's maintaining the weeds essentially is what we're doing, just to keep the weeds cut down.
Hey, make a nice little soccer field.
So
We didn't
what's
find
the
why
di-
they did it this way. We're not sure in our research exactly why it was all fenced in and,
There was some cost there.
yeah.
Or why the storm drain never was functional?
Yeah, and it may have been functional at some point. The boxes are there. It's just a matter of the orifice plates and a few things that are broken, so. And we would do it differently. We'd propose if we're gonna do it, to do it right, we would bring in a little bit more, so that it isn't, right now what happens is the water comes into here, it floods into the property, and then it goes out at this corner down here. And the problem with that is you just get a really swampy area in the one end. So what we'd propose to do is bring a pipe between the two so that it just backs up into the property and out rather than running through the property.
Right.
So those are the things that as we started looking at it, delved into what it is, we were just like, that was what would recommend to be done to make that functional space and operable.
Well, it sounds like we need to do that anyway.
Yeah, we definitely have to fix
Right,
the
I
orifice
mean,
plate. That's the one
let's
thing
make
that
it
has to be
functional.
fixed to make it work, but it could function like it is with just the orifice plate as we understand it, so.
So no leveling,
It's actually, I think
Pretty darn
it's just,
good.
I mean, the reality is whether or not, we'll have to check on whether or not the soil's good and things like that for sod. But we've never had irrigation there as far as I understand. It's not, we have no irrigation in it. And so we would have to obviously clear grub, determine whether or not we got adequate topsoil to plant sod or seed and put in an irrigation system.
okay. Irrigation system meaning like sprinklers,
Yes.
okay.
Let's get
So
something
there is
done
gonna
fast.
be
And
some
then-
cost,
It's another piece that they get a mow every week.
yeah,
Yes.
We would love it. It'd be a lot better than it is.
okay.
Okay, so that's how we'll proceed. We'll have the cost for you, and then you give us the thumbs up on that, and we'll proceed on that.
Just with, with other detention basins, do we sod those and do we put the irrigation systems in those? Because I don't see sprinklers necessarily going in.
The larger ones, I believe we do.
The larger ones we do? Okay,
Well, and
okay.
I mean, usually it's a requirement of the development, isn't it?
Yes.
That changed about 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
The developer asked to put that in.
Let's just get
Prior to that,
Okay,
Prior, this one, it didn't require.
okay, and it's a larger piece, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, can we get some proposals next couple weeks from now?
Yeah. Yep,
An estimate.
Yeah, right.
we got a cost estimate. We have a timeline.
Got to get it engineered so we know what we're looking at there. So anyway, that's,
Yeah,
Okay.
and when we say estimates, we actually talk about, we're not talking about our estimates, we're talking about bidded estimates.
No, we're talking about construction estimates
From who?
from our engineers.
Okay.
So they provide the estimate, that's what we present to you, so that you can give us budget approval, and then we go do it. That's been our practice.
And then you get a bid?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and if the bid comes in less than what we project, great, then that's money we can use for another project. If it comes back more, then we generally have to come back to you and say it was bid more than what we anticipated. It's a little bit of a challenge trying to, figure out where we're at in today's market, but the flip side to that is we can engineer it all, and then if the price comes in and bid it, and if the price is too high and the council says we're not gonna do this, then we've spent all that money doing that.
Let me make sure I understand what you just said.
Yeah,
So we engineer it, we estimate the price.
we don't engineer it, we do a cost estimate on it.
Okay, and how do we do that? How do we?
Marty?
How do we? I mean, do we go to, do we poll landscape companies? Or do we, you know, what's the process to ensure that the cost estimate and the bid and the final price are all aligned and they're not, because what we don't want to have happen is we don't want to overestimate it by 100,000 and then use 100,000 for other things, right? That's not appropriate for city funds, right? And we don't want to do it the other way, right? So the most appropriate thing is to make sure that our cost estimates and our bids and our actual construction costs are within 5%.
No, it's usually not 5%.
Well, let's say,
Go ahead.
let's say
Let
10%.
Marty
Well,
talk.
you're talking, Mayor, let me just, it's gotta be within a process
Yeah.
that if I go buy laptops, right? I can go to the board of directors and I can say, all right, board of directors, this is how many I want, right? But by doing that, I go actually get prices, right? I've seen over the last 4 years that sometimes our estimates and the final bids aren't the same. So I'm concerned. I just want to make sure that I understand the process so that we can.
Very rare.
Well, we've seen
There's
it.
a lot of things. So there's a planning level estimate, and then there's actually a design estimate. And those sometimes are where you kind of come with that big gap, because we're trying to get you information to see if it's a project that we want to spend the effort and the time to get the level of accuracy that you're asking us for. But you're doing it at a point when you don't know much about the project. You can go look at it, and on this one, this one's a little bit different, Todd, I'd say, versus something like the pickleball court. That has a lot of detail that you're using information.
and engineering, I understand.
But in this situation, we know we'll go in and we'll say, okay, we're gonna need a box, we're gonna need this much pipe, we're gonna need to do this. And we've had recent bids where we can use the numbers off of those contractors on those bids and say, oh yes, that we think, you know, and we usually go with the average, and we usually put a 15, even at this level, you're probably a 20% contingency in that number, just to make sure if there's anything that comes up, you've got that covered. But sometimes what happens is when you get into the actual detailed design, you find a pipe under here that you hadn't accounted for, and now you got to go replace that storm drain pipe because you haven't gotten in and televised the lines or looked at them in that much detail, or even surveyed the property to verify, you know, all of the information about the property. And so there's those two levels. So what we try to get to you at the concept level is a good estimate based on what we see. We go out there, we still investigate, but we haven't done a survey. We haven't identified everything that needs to happen there. And then we put about a 20% contingency on those. Generally, when we get to the design level, before we go to bid, we have a really good engineer's estimate that we use. And that one usually is pretty close because it's usually off of recent bids. If it's like work that we've seen recently bid, some of the problems is that things change really fast in the construction industry, and things that you're bidding 6 months ago are different prices now. And that's a very difficult time right now, especially. But that doesn't always happen that way. Industry today, that is, but a few years ago, it was more stable. And so it kind of just depends on how much detail that you want to get into, how much effort you put into that before you even given, you know, we're going to do this project. It's more of, this is approximately what that's going to be based on our best estimates at this point. If you give us approval to go forward, we'll go in and get the detailed design. We'll get that bid out. We'll give you 3 bids. It's really hard for a contractor to be committed to a project when he knows you're doing it to give you a concept cost. They don't want to give you, they don't want to spend hours and hours and hours on a project just to give you a cost, and then we decide not to do it.
Right.
So it's really, we've got to get it to a level that we can bid it, and at that point, we'll have more defined numbers of what we feel like that estimate is, and then they'll give us their bids back. We'll compare them and make sure we're good.
Are we pretty good in nature?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. I mean, honestly.
Well, especially materials are 40% increase monthly.
Because the market.
Moving target.
And
Yeah.
so from time of your concept plan number to when you actually bid it, to when you actually construct it, can be a moving target. Most of the time it's not,
I know.
but today's market right now, so I think our project to drill the water, the well,
Yeah.
I mean, construction estimate was not close to what the actual bid came in at, so.
Well, originally.
Originally, yeah,
But-
we bumped it because we saw the market changing.
But if you look at the last bids we received, Todd, and that's probably a good example, we received bids from 190 on the 800 North project, 190 all the way up to 450. Okay. The first bid was 190. Our estimate was 240. The second bid was 280. If we hadn't gotten that first bid, we would have been 40,000 over our estimate. We got the first bid, so we're 40,000 under. So it's really hard to really get in and know what these contractors are bidding, how busy they are, and how much they want the project. It makes a huge difference on whether or not they give you a bid that they're really hungry for it or not.
Yeah, the question really, and you've answered it, so you've done a great job. The question really was, how good are we at estimating, right?
That's-
To final cost, because that's critical, right? When, for our, the way we approve things or not approve things, I just want to make sure that our process is sound. It sounds
Honestly,
like-
Todd, I
sounds
think
like
we
it.
try to be conservative on those concept estimates, and we aren't always right, but we do try to put in that contingency because there is a lot of unknowns at this level. But again, simple projects, this is not rocket science on this one. But get into the complex projects, we usually throw everything in there, and then we're like, we better add 20 or 30% sometimes just to make sure we've got enough budget to be able to get the project done and when we get to the detailed design.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to request that there's two bids, one for the minimum of taking the fence down and landscaping, and then another that includes the rehab to the infrastructure there.
You
So-
want two separate projects?
Yeah, because if it's gonna stop the project, because altogether this is over budget because we have, the infrastructure needs to be fixed, when really for 25 years it hasn't been a problem. It sounds like it's functioned, maybe not at the level we want it to, like the other basins, but it hasn't been enough of a problem to where it's caused issues. So if we could leave it and we don't need to fix it, then I would rather, at the minimum, I'd like to take the fence down and landscape it for the neighbors. But if we seem to be done in phases, I just don't want it to be all or nothing. If it's gonna be quite expensive to do that rehab, when really for 25 years, it hasn't necessarily been an issue.
It's not a big enough project. We should be able to fund this. It's not a big enough
And
project.
I would expect that we'd be looking at storm
You
drain
can't
money to
break it
fund
up.
the storm drain portion of that to make that functioning, not general fund money. That's what we would be looking at, that's what we're.
I have no idea what it's gonna come back as, that's why I was requesting that.
No, we've already taken a preliminary look, but we'll be able to fund it. It's not into the hundreds.
It's not out of the range
Okay,
of what we
okay.
can
It's
get
a
accomplished.
pretty, it's a pretty good project that I think we can get done. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll work on that and have that number for you.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's move on to item number C, Scott.
Item C is the dirt pile that we have out on North County Boulevard. It is just east of Belmonet Housing Complex, just west of kind of Evermore in the grid. Is everybody familiar with the dirt we're talking about?
Yes.
So a few years,
Whole county is.
a few years ago, it was probably, I would say about 3 years ago, 2 years ago, we met with the property owner, or the person who represents the property owner, and the contractor that they have that they're using to take this dirt out. And what we told them as staff was we want that, first of all, no more dirt. We're not taking in any new dirt. The dirt needs to go, and you need to get it shipped out of there. So, and we told them, as long as you're making progress, then we'll continue with you. We did not necessarily set a time. Their idea is they're selling it. They're selling the dirt to contractors when they need it as fill. And so as the contracting business goes, that's how they do it. So in the last
So
couple,
do they bring dirt in?
not anymore, no.
No, but they were.
Yeah.
Is that what they were doing? Was that the business? They were bringing dirt in?
It wasn't the
and then-
business. I think,
was the-
I think the property owner told certain people, you can store your dirt there for free, because the intention of the property owner is they wanted to raise the property there. And then once they started getting more and more, I think they thought that they'd just turn around and sell it. So to them, it was probably became a business enterprise that if people are giving me free dirt, I can just turn around and sell this and make some money. So in the last 2 years, that pile, from my visual estimation has probably been cut in about 2/3. I think there's about a third left from where it was about 3 years ago. So they've been making progress. I do check in with them. I talked to the contractor probably about 6 weeks ago, asking them about the progress and making sure that they're continuing. If you can see their stuff out there, they've kind of pushed some of it up. If you take a look at what they're doing out there, because they are getting to a point where it was coming down low enough that they wanted to kind of push it up so they could still get their vehicles up there. And then they did kind of push up one side to help towards the apartments as a sound shield with some of the work that they're doing there. And they said, you know, we're hoping within the next year that would all be, you know, called for and gone. So he says, we've been making good progress. We've been shipping it out. So that's been staff's approach. That's been our inclination, is if they're making progress, then we've been okay with the pace that they're going. If the council wants to give direction otherwise, then, you know, let me know, and we can approach the property owner and let them know what the feelings are.
Yeah, I think it needs a deadline. I think 3 years is long enough. It's an eyesore for the residents in the townhomes to the west of the dirt pile. It's an eyesore when you're on North Utah County Boulevard, when it's an entrance to our city and one of the busiest roads into the city. It's an eyesore I think they've had long enough, and I think we've been more than accommodating. I got a video from a resident that was asking if it was a development going in because the dirt pile was so high.
Yeah.
In fact, it's been there so long that grass is starting to grow up at the base.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm personally done with it being there. I want it cleaned up. We would code enforce anyone else, and we have code enforced other businesses in the area pretty heavily. And I think it's time that we give them a deadline to have that removed.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, so code enforcement now, they do give people time to fix their issue.
But they've had 3 years.
I know, and that was our initial response to them, is we'll give you time. And so, and this was before we had Gail as our code enforcement officer. So if there's a change in direction and we want it out sooner rather than later, then I'll let Gail know. She can sit down with them and they can do that. I guess I need to know from you what's an appropriate timeline for them. So
I think for me, what's the definition of progress?
Progress is that it goes down.
Well, that's one shovelful a year. That's progress. No, I'm just saying.
I'm just saying
Come off
two-thirds
the lot.
two-thirds of it's
Yeah.
gone.
So I mean, I'm okay with the timeline. Let's just give them a date.
Or I
Let's
would,
give them another year.
yeah.
Okay, so December 31st, dirt needs to
It's,
officially be gone.
it's been there more than 3 years, let's just be honest.
Well, no,
right?
they just started reducing the
I
pile.
know,
3
but-
the pile's been there longer than
I
that.
th-
Yeah.
I think a year's probably too much time. I could probably give them to the end of summer. But,
Well, you give them to the end of the year, then that's the construction season now.
true.
And most likely what they'll probably do is Elon will take a majority of that out, and then the rest of that, they'll just doze off and level out the whole thing because it's too expensive to take the dirt if you don't have a place for it.
Right. But we would, I
And
mean,
then-
we
and
we
then
wouldn't
just leave
allow,
it up
we
higher.
wouldn't allow that type of business there
anywhere.
to begin with. Right, had we known that that's what they were gonna sell dirt out of that property, we wouldn't allow that.
Yeah, no, that's
Well-
true,
So let's.
that's true.
I don't think he's selling out of there. He's processing, taking over, making, and then he takes it over to his place and mixes it for topsoil. That's what, and then it's sold at his place in American Fork.
9 months.
He's just screening and
So
removing it.
but we
from
wouldn't
that.
allow, we wouldn't allow that on North County Boulevard as an acceptable use.
You're
No,
correct, but what are you
it's
gonna do with
it's
the
in
pile?
violation of code.
Yeah.
He's removing the pile.
But
Yeah.
it's been, he's
But
had
it is
long
a
enough to
violation.
remove it. I think it's a giant eyesore, and I personally, I want it gone as soon as possible. I think we've been more than accommodating to them, and I've had complaints from residents. In fact, what she showed me was, the video she sent me was from a window in a balcony at the townhomes west of there. And it was level. with-
Yeah, because they had pushed the dirt
Yeah,
up there,
it's level.
that was the
It's
noise
not,
screen.
it's not nice to look out and see that. It's,
Yeah.
have it gone. We would not allow this anywhere else in the city. And especially on North County Boulevard, we should have a higher standard for what, that gateway to our city right there.
Yeah,
Well, to be fair, that was all farmland. I mean, literally, it was all farmland. This wasn't part of the thoroughfare of traffic. This wasn't the gateway to the city.
But it is now.
It is now, so,
I
but
think,
to that point, I think it, with the intent of us saying we would like it by the end of the construction year, you know, say September, something like that. But what's gonna happen is, you're exactly right, they're gonna remove as much as they can, and then they're just gonna spread it
Yeah,
around
just
and
spread it
bulldoze
out.
it.
That's fine. I'm fine with that. If they want to spread it out and make it, so it's just, that's fine. I'm trying to prevent like a huge mountain of dirt that when someone looks out their window, that's what they're seeing. I just don't
So
like that.
I don't know that it's a violation, so I don't know that, is
Well,
it?
it's
It is a
it's
violation of
It's a
code.
violation.
Yeah,
Got
it
it.
is violation of code.
property owner accepted dirt. It wasn't like that always.
No, it was not.
He decided he was gonna accept dirt from people, and over the years it built up. It wasn't legal to do that.
Okay.
I think
So the
September,
code enforcer has something to actually
Yeah.
sink some teeth
Yeah,
into.
there's a violation of code. There's teeth to it.
Okay,
Again, we've kind of just had the handshake deal the last couple of years, that, you know, get that stuff out of there, which, again, they've reduced it, but there is still a decent amount of dirt there.
so say
let's give them
October,
this next, yeah, October.
so by October,
So October 1,
yeah.
okay?
I think you have,
Okay with
you put a
everybody?
couple dates in there, follow up.
Well, we'll put this in writing to them. I mean,
Like now?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll put it, yeah. We'll get that to them as soon as possible so they know the expectation. Because then if they don't, then we start heading down the process of the fines and the, I don't know if it's administrative or criminal or whatever that looks like, but either direction in order to do that.
And in hindsight, we should have probably said, okay, we give you a year to remove it when we first did it, which we didn't. Now we give them time, a timeline, and we hold them to it, and then,
Yeah. Okay,
okay?
all right, that's all I got.
That concludes everything we have for our work session. And Sherry, let's start, have you got anything you'd like to talk to us about tonight on the library?
I like that shirt, Sherry. Green and gold.
Just thought I'd mention that right now we've got a Dungeons and Dragons math adventure for young kids. So it's a
Oh.
pared down Dungeons and Dragons that teaches STEAM. And then at 7, so a couple hours, we've got author Natalie, I'm not sure how the last name's pronounced, Brian, if any of you know her.
Okay.
She lives here in PG. But she's coming and speaking in Haley Howe's series that she's doing. She has an author every month
I
come
thought
to the
those were normally
library.
on Wednesdays.
Uh,
No?
I don't know about normally, but
Okay.
they're tonight.
Well, they just seem like they've been like really popular. That's awesome. The
Yeah.
Meet the Author series.
Yeah, it's been going well. And so, and also I put up on our digital sign that we're looking for Arts Commission members and Library Foundation.
Oh, really?
So if you know people who might be interested in either one, send them our way, or Arts Commission, send them to the city
Okay.
page to sign up. So that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Sherry.
Thank you.
Chief? Looks like all our fire guys are busy. You know what they're on this afternoon, or?
Video games.
Good response.
Police department's doing good. Just real quick, a couple things. Steve Brenton, his last day is January 22nd.
Start crying right now.
Yeah, he's a big loss. He's a good guy. We hired a young man by the name of Jerem Hendricks. He is just out of the academy. He's a good kid. Did well in our testing process, so he's a good prospect. It's just going to take some time to train him up. So he will be starting sometime around the 1st of February. So it'll be another new guy we have to field train. Within the last couple of weeks, been pretty busy. Just average calls, basically. A couple of interesting life-saving stories I can tell you real quick. About a week and a half ago, we had a man overdose on methamphetamine and heroin. Officer Brianna Wilding was the first officer there. The other officers were tied up on a traffic accident and couldn't get out in time. She showed up, and the man didn't have a pulse and was not breathing, so she initiated CPR. She worked CPR for about 3 to 4 minutes before the paramedics could get there. By the time they got there, they were able to load him and head off to the hospital. By the time they got to the hospital, they were able to get a pulse. He woke up. He was pretty combative with the paramedics and the people at the ER, but they saved his life. So she did an amazing job with her CPR.
Cool.
Your officers have Narcan with them.
They do. I don't know the reason why she did not use Narcan. I don't know the story behind that, but she did, and she did CPR. But we do carry Narcan. I just don't know if she had it with her on her person or what the story was with that. And I don't know why the ambulance didn't either, but I don't know that they knew what was actually wrong with the person, or there weren't any signs of needles or anything on scene when they got there. So I don't know if they actually knew what the problem was, but it's common practice to use it, but
Yeah.
so I don't know why they didn't, but. A couple days after that, we had a man call stating that he was fighting with his wife. She had locked herself in her second-story room, told him that she was going to commit suicide. He called our guys. Officer Larson and Officer Kirkham showed up. She was locked in her bedroom door. She wouldn't respond to them. They forced their way into the bedroom and found that she had tied a noose around her neck and she was hanging out the second-story window. They pulled her back into the room. She was unconscious. She didn't have a pulse. They worked CPR on her until the paramedics were able to get there, and they loaded her up and took off with her and ended up getting a pulse, and they saved her life as well. So a couple of good stories, good CPR stories, and guys did a good job. So
Okay, anything else for the chief?
No, thank you.
thank you.
Daniel?
Nobody ever wants to follow.
No.
Daniel, who did you or your people save this last 2 weeks?
Pardon?
Who did you CPR on?
How many lives did you save? Well, many people were about to have heart attacks with the building permits, and I got them ready.
Yes.
No, I don't have anything unless you guys have a question for me. Oh,
A few meetings ago, there was some discussion about the code enforcement, and there was some discussion about we were going to be able to get that information and what the status of each one of those places are. I drive past the same houses that I suspect the code enforcer has been there and nothing's changed.
Okay.
So,
so we, obviously, see if I understand. You want a better system where we can report of what's going on with the difficult children that we have in the city?
yes.
These difficult
Yeah.
projects. We've been looking into one. There's a product that I really like. It's the one that we use for building permits that everyone can just log in and then you can see right there. We haven't, they usually have meetings in July when they make a presentation and stuff like that, and we go over there, and I don't know if they didn't do it last year, but we'll look into it. But in the meantime, I'll make sure we come up with a more efficient way to communicate that to those.
I
Because she's
think-
doing something, I know she is doing something, but we have it in an Excel sheet right now, something like that, and we have it in a map. But
Okay.
it's difficult to
And speaking of
show.
a place that's on First East, the kind of kitty corner from the school here. And I know that people have called about that. And that's been months ago, and it's just gotten worse.
Okay.
Corner lot. Yes, yes.
I'll make sure I follow up with an email for everybody, and that will be part of my report, so I can do that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay.
On Monday, so we already started rolling the ball for a general plan. So on Monday, we're doing a field trip, and I invited the mayor and Scott, but if any of you guys would like to tag along and come with us, I'll for sure extend an invitation. We're just gonna go travel around, see the area, especially the Grove and the downtown, and just point some areas that we would like for redevelopment and stuff like that. Did you get my invitation, Mayor?
No.
You didn't get it?
Yeah, I did. I got it.
You got, okay.
Yeah, I got
No,
it.
don't scare me, because I'm like, so we'll do it on Monday, the 24th, I think. And it's a good opportunity to rub shoulders with the people that are going to help us out with that. So
Yeah, the police
Paddy wagon, you always put us in there.
transport vehicle.
that'll be fun again.
I'll send an appointment to you so you guys can have it on your calendar, so that you
Okay.
can make it.
That'd be good. So they're just gonna drive around, see it, and you know, all the planners want to see do a field trip before they start typing stuff. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, how fun.
Daniel, where we are with the Beekeepers Association for Utah
So
County?
with the Beekeeper Association, when Tina started drafting something and she got something amazing, really good. We just were like, we want to do a field trip, and then the call came in when the bees go back home. So we just waiting for the bees to come out as soon as they come in the spring. We have something drafted, and we had a meeting and we'll review it, and it's pretty good. We just need one little detail.
So
to
didn't,
fix.
the county sent you the code.
Yes.
It's been adopted in 8 cities,
Yes.
6 months ago.
There's a little thing in regards just to if we're gonna notify the neighbors as how Orem and I think Provo does it a little differently, or if we even want to do that or not. And in order to do that, I talked to them, and they told me, come see us, and we can give you a field trip, and we will show you how far they go and stuff like that. And then we just got caught in the winter, but I talked to them, and as soon as the heat comes, we'll do it, and it will be approved. So we almost have it.
Let's execute, guys,
Okay.
right? Let's execute.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Daniel.
Okay.
Marty? Before you begin, Marty, I've got an engineering question for you, and I know it'll come up.
Okay.
On our dirt pile, how high can they, by code, can they have it? I mean, when they finish up, it has to be back down to original grade?
That's actually a good
That'll
question.
be an
because
issue.
We should give them direction on that, so they don't think they just have to reduce it by like a foot. So we should give them specifics.
I don't know that there's actually something very specific in our ordinance with regards to height. I think it's more based on a nuisance, and there's currently, so before we didn't have a requirement for grading permits where people were bringing a lot of, they were piling up dirt, they were doing a lot of work on their property. We've noticed those. A lot of times we'll just kind of let them know that if they ever come in to develop, they're gonna have to remove all this undocumented fill material. They have to deal with SWIP issues, and that's how we've been addressing it. We've recently implemented that we have a grading permit requirement for doing large grading on private properties. But before that, I don't know, Mayor, that there is it can't be higher than this number in the ordinance with regards to grading.
The code doesn't address, when it talks about the nuisance, it doesn't talk about the height. It doesn't say anything about height. And I think what
So-
Marty's referring to is when it comes to what we allow with grade, it doesn't sound like we have a height for that either.
So I guess we probably need to look into that to see, so we can tell them, say, okay, you can't be higher than so many feet above the curb line of North County Boulevard.
Yeah.
Sure, I think there needs to be some defined
Parameters.
direction to them, because otherwise they're gonna say, well, like you said, they could just level it all off 10 or 15 feet above the grade. Is
Right.
that a big issue until they actually come in and develop? Then we'll make sure that it's taken care of with regards to all of it has to be documented and taken care of that way. But as far as whether or not we can tell them they have to take it down to 3 feet above the native grade, again, I think it's a matter of, is it a nuisance, and are they maintaining it properly so that it doesn't become a nuisance for the surrounding properties? And I think that's probably what is going to be the definition. I don't know, what is that number? What is that height? I don't know if it's creating an issue, a blocking issue for the neighbor because they just piled it up. I think that's an obvious issue and a nuisance, but if they've got it leveled off, it's not obscuring views, it's not, they're taking care of their weeds, then maybe there isn't that big of an issue there until they come in and develop it, but.
Okay, can you,
We don't regulate it, what you're saying, what I hear you saying is we don't regulate that until time of development.
That's
So
correct.
as long as
Right.
it's not creating a nuisance and they're maintaining it, we don't have a standard to say you can only go 3 feet or 4 feet above.
or 10 feet?
I mean, part of
Well,
it's,
if it's SWIP compliant, that's not coming
part of
up
it we-
onto the street.
Does have SWIP stuff that has to be addressed, yes.
I mean, part of it, we've never had this issue with anyone having like a huge dirt pile this high. But I do think we should be very specific in what we're asking them to do. Instead of just, your dirt pile needs to be gone, that could mean something different for them.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's an issue with what they're doing, like the mayor said, as I believe that's true, that they are mining, essentially. They had all the dirt brought in, he has a contract with ESP to take it away and use that for their topsoil business, but I don't know that they're doing anything more than that. There could be a nuisance with dust flying and making sure that's taken care of. There's a nuisance with,
Right.
again, visual aspects of that that they would need to address, but I think it'll be hard to define exactly what we can require them to do, to some degree, as long as they do something.
Okay, I mean, could you give us an engineer's,
Yeah, we can look at it. and-
say, no more than 8 feet from,
I think we ought to look at it from the SWIP perspective in what's safe in terms of how high it can be before it's running into the curbs
Right.
and the gutters and our storm system, which it can't. So I think probably engineering wise, they need to look at that
okay,
But
all right.
aspect of it.
that, again, this is such a expansive area, right? We're not talking about right next to a street. They're
Right.
50 feet off the street. They aren't going to be doing, so as long as they maintain it. So I don't think SWIP is going to be a big issue as far as long as it's not running into the ditches and
Not
most of
now.
everything's piped and as long as they're taking care of stuff like that. We can address SWIP for sure to make sure that's taken care of as well with what we say is going to need to be kind of the final, how this is left, so it's not creating a nuisance for the public.
Okay, all right.
Have they been cleaning up the street as the trucks go in and out? I do know that there are some planted landscaping along that south side, right?
So now we have the
That
new Utah
we're-
Ice Center there, and then you're saying just to the west of the Ice Center, there's that strip there.
Yes.
And that they kind of have an access out there. And again, I haven't heard of any complaints like from the guys saying, hey, these guys are constantly tracking or having an issue. It's always an issue at this
I've
time of the
seen
year,
that.
regardless of what site you're on. But again, I think they're managing it like they should, because we haven't been issuing citations that I'm aware of, and it hasn't got to my attention anyway, so that there's an
Thanks,
issue. with it.
Marty.
And it's been happening for 3 years at least.
Okay.
But just in a general note, with the snow's been good, unfortunately. I did look at numbers on Saturday when we had our irrigation board meeting, and we're up on temp, we're 120% still as of last Saturday of normal. But 110% of
much?
snowpack.
Wow.
So, but that changes quick when you get these big dry spells for
Yeah.
weeks and weeks, and, the averages go up and it's staying level, and so it can taper off pretty quick. So let's still hope and pray for some more rain and moisture, because we
Yeah.
still need it. We're definitely not there yet. If you look at some of those curves, we got a long ways to go to get to our needed water for this year, and so a couple of storms were promising, but at the same time, it's not continuing. So hopefully that will change in direction to continue to bring more moisture. We're going to be approving the bid for the well project, the drilling of that tonight, and that's a great, to get that project moving is going to be a great benefit to us to have that available. Again, it's still going to take us about 10 months probably to get that well equipped and operable, hopefully by the end of the year, but it'll be a great resource to have that in place. And a ton of other things still moving forward, and we'll be before you shortly, so
Okay, thank you, Marty.
happy to answer any questions. If there's anything else?
Anything for Marty?
No, we're just angry at you.
I know, I'm sorry. Still Appreciate all of you.
Well, with that, we ask for a motion to adjourn from our work session. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, make a motion that we adjourn from work session.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?